Today we're talking about what makes relationships so difficult.
You know it's kids.
Having them?
No, that we used to be them.
Okay.
That's part of the problem. How the impacts of childhood and the expectations and the emotional hurts that we had and how that causes the whole challenge.
And kerfuffle.
That's the word I was going to use. Kerfuffle in relationships. And so we bring some of our pain expectations from childhood into our adult relationships. You can't change what you don't own. And if you keep walking around being unaware of the negative impacts that you have in all your relationships, then you're just going to keep being on
that hamster wheel of recreating all the same drama and troubles over and over and over again.
And so that's why you want to watch this video, because we're going to help you understand how to be more relational.
Hey, baby.
It's cozy.
Hey, cheers.
Cheers.
Here is the beginning of Kitchen Conversations.
Kitchen Conversations.
This is something that Jeff and I do all the time. But this is our dream, to share what we do every day. We are so devoted and we so nerd out on talking about all things relationships. And it happens here in our kitchen.
Yeah.
Totally. So here we go. Episode 1 of Kitchen Conversations. Okay, there's two veins I want to explore while we're chatting today.
Yeah.
And the first one is in your opinion, what do you think makes relationships so hard?
Well, I think that stems from childhood, that, as children, and rightfully so, children are focused on self. They're self-centered. Mm-hmm. They're focused on their world. You go to a sandbox with 2 or 3-year-olds, they're not focused on collaborating. They're focused on their own play in the sandbox. And when they want a toy, they just go take the toy. They don't know to ask. They have little to no awareness of other. Some kid will be building something, another kid will trounce it. And not because that kid's being a jerk, it's just the kid is just not aware.
Which kid were you? Were you the kid that trounced, or were you the... Okay, keep going.
So I think as children, we're just so self-centered, and we naturally should grow out of that, out into the world, so that we can see, there are others that we interact with, and more importantly, others that we impact.
Yeah.
And that's really the change in adolescence, the awareness of other.
Right, so growing from that selfish child, and I shouldn't say selfish, going from a self-absorbed child because you're just so present and all you know is you.
I think because as children, the relationships are granted. Mm-hmm. And so kids don't have to do much to maintain the relationship with parents. And so the relational skills aren't developed, aren't fostered, aren't promoted. And so we as children and even adolescents just act on rote which are given to us. So that's why you'll hear parents say to kids when they've done something wrong, they say you're sorry. And so the kid will just say, sorry, and will act on command without recognizing why do they need to say sorry in the first place. And so I think that's kind of like the foundation of why relationships are so difficult, is because we're not reared to understand the impact that we have on relationships, both the positive and the negative. And so when you cut to adult relationships, it's like, hey, let's get together, let's have a relationship. We just have low skills and also low awareness. And so we don't have the capacity or the ability to change how we show up because we're just not aware that we're showing up self-centered.
Yeah, I think, when you talk about not getting the skills developed in our childhood, that also makes me think about, though, but our parents and our grandparents and their parents didn't have the skills developed in their childhood. Far from it. I mean, there's probably more available today than ever. More, even though I think we lack greatly in self-awareness and understanding of impact. Yeah, I think we're better at it today than we would have been 100 years ago.
For sure. And so that gets passed down generation to generation. So where do we even expect that we're gonna
develop these skills or have these skills for relationship, and yet I find it kind of ironic, yet we're drawn to be in relationship. I think it's like the great setup.
Yeah. And so there's an important piece that, when we always talk about the chain of pain, or, your parents can't pass on what they don't own. I'm really quick to step in and say, so this is why we don't throw our parents under the bus. So we can talk about the chain of pain. We can talk about what, exactly.
See how excited our dogs get about this
Whenever
topic?
we talk about this, they do this all the time.
Our Bodhi, he still has some mother issues.
So
talk about the chain of pain.
So we don't rush to throw our parents under the bus or our grandparents under the bus, because they lack the skills. Their parents didn't give them relational skills. And so when we look back to past, like childhood or your parents' childhoods, it's not to blame and belittle and judge the parents, it's to get information.
Yeah, I agree with you, though. I think it's important that we don't blame our parents for where we are now.
Mm-hmm.
We need to understand where we or how we came to be.
Mm-hmm.
That's helpful.
Mm-hmm.
So because when we understand the system, we can make wiser choices on how we want to change that system.
Yeah.
But we can't blame the system for what it's been.
The other side is you're not stuck with the relationship with your parents or your grandparents. So there's always the invitation to say, please come sit at the table. I want to grow with you. And so when the child becomes an equal member of society and becomes an adult or a parent themselves, they can look to their parent and say, I want our relationship. I want to talk about what it was like when I was a child, because this relationship is important to me. And so I have some pain, some hurt that I want to negotiate. And that's not to dump on parents, but to say, I carry this pain of abandonment from childhood, or I carry this pain of smothering from childhood that I'd like to talk out. Because that's really the healing that parents can have with their children, and now adult children can have with their children.
Yeah. It also brings up for me another reason why I think relationships are so hard for us. So one, yes, we weren't given the skills and shown how to do it effectively.
No.
But then there's also what we leave childhood with is a longing for what we didn't get relationally as a child. And we don't realize that we take that out into the world. And then I put that on you. Or I've even put that on our dog, so we look for someone else to fulfill what we didn't get in childhood, and most of the time we're really unconscious about it. We don't realize we're doing that.
Yeah.
And so we're asking of others and setting an expectation, sometimes even called a demand, that the other person may not actually be able to fill.
True, and some may be able to fill. Like having safety and security in a relationship, everyone wants to feel safe and secure, and that's why some people have a close affinity to animals, because they are stable, they are secure.
What you see is what you get.
They're there. They're every day to cuddle with, and you have a companion to walk. So that's why sometimes relationship with animals and pets in general are just easier to negotiate. Our dog's just happy to have attention. But then, when you have expectations of other people, when you have more intimate relationships, or the closer that person is, or the more emotionally important that relationship is, the more expectations we have. I don't have a ton of expectations on my neighbors. If you show up, awesome. You don't, if I invite you to dinner, I don't expect you to bring a whole bunch, right? I have low expectations of neighbors, but people having higher expectations of their siblings, of their best friends, of their work colleagues,
of their bosses,
and of their romantic partner. Of course we have more expectations because there's more intimacy there.
I think the other thing that makes it hard to be in relationship is when we bring our past wounds into our current relationships, and we don't realize we're doing this, because if I had, let's say, a brother who teased me,
Mm-hmm.
then you might think it's playful, but you're teasing me, and I'm going to have a big reaction
Mm-hmm.
to that, bigger than what the situation warrants.
Yeah.
And I am now taking out on you what is what I'm going to call is my wound from my childhood, is the pain from my childhood that I haven't actually unpacked yet.
Yeah.
And that also sets up relationships to be difficult, because we have these little landmines that can go off. And I mean, and definitely it goes off more in a romantic relationship, but it can go off with, that sibling, with a neighbor, with a colleague, with a friend.
You're right, because there's a lot to unpack there. Because
I think the key is unpacking, yeah.
Well, the truth is, because if we have old wounds that we haven't processed, it's kind of stored up. And, if we don't process those old wounds and become aware of them, then it's sort of like old baggage that we haven't unpacked yet. So we got to unpack that stuff so that the luggage that we carry around is lighter. So our emotional baggage isn't a heavy suitcase. It's sort of like a little mini backpack.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that I wish I understood better.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought I was more aware of what I carried with me, but I wasn't. That what was created and the emotion and particularly the big emotion, the painful emotion, the upsetting emotion, that I just wanted to hide away and not look at when I was younger, because it hurt and I didn't know what to do with it and how to process it. And I didn't have access to people I could process it with. So I didn't realize how much it actually directs my life and shows up in my relationships.
Yeah. Emotional pain and physical pain register in the same area of the brain. And so, your emotional pain can be just as impacting to your body system. And so if I have an injury, like if I hurt my shoulder back in university, this shoulder may still be impacted anytime I do this movement. And so present and future movements may cause this injury. And so I have to work that out. I have to go to physiotherapy. I have to process this. Otherwise, this injury is going to be impacting me anytime that I move this shoulder. Well, the same with emotional pain. If we have it unprocessed, we have so much history of that same emotional pain over time, that becomes a trigger point for us. And so rightfully so, when I do something that is a behavior that somehow negates you in a way that you're like, wait a minute, I grew up with this kind of negating, so that when I do a behavior, you'll have a bigger reaction because you have present day reaction from my action.
Right. So
but you have all of
scarring or tearing, right?
But you have this injury, but the scarring and tearing is from all these other previous wounds that haven't been processed. So that's why I may see you have a big reaction. So I'm whenever I talk to people about their overreaction, I'm quick to say, it may not be overreacting, it just may be reacting with multiple times over history. So it appears on the outside like it's a big reaction, bigger than the event, and sometimes you will react or I'll react bigger than the event itself, and that's just because it has history that is also coming out.
I like that though, because that makes so much sense. Like if I have an injury and I haven't taken care of it, then even I might just bang myself, against the wall walking out, and I might have a big response, which is like, okay, Alan, you just banged yourself against the wall. But even the slightest bruise on top of something that is broken or has a great deal of injury and scarring is going to hurt a lot. Yeah. And you're right, we're taught to pay more attention to that. At least those of us who are wise about our health, we say, wow, this really hurt more than it should. I should go get this looked at. I wish we did that more, and we're encouraged to do that more in relationship. And that brings up another aspect of why I think relationships are hard. I actually think we are discouraged. Is that the word, discouraged? I think we're discouraged from actually seeking help about our relationships. There's this stigma attached to the idea that you need help in your relationships. You should just know how to do this.
I think that we have the expectations that people should arrive on the scene of the dating scene as finished products, as destinations that, people who say, oh, I just want to find someone who has their shit together. But no one is going to be that way. We're not destinations. We're all works in progress.
As a matter of fact, actually, I think I would be wary now, knowing what I know now, having once been one of those people who like, I just want to find someone that has their shit together. Anyone that appears to have their shit together, I would be wary of today.
Yeah, well, I just know.
What
I know that
the surface.
They're selling a book or their new perfume. I think that what's difficult about relationship is that if you have a trigger point, or I'm triggered by something, or I have some emotional injury from my past, and I unwittingly bring that into our relationship, a lot of people don't want to deal with someone else's baggage. So they want to send that person away. Go seek help.
Yeah, you go fix yourself.
Go therapy, and then when you're done, come back. Meaning, I don't want to have to deal with this. Let some other human being deal with you, because I don't really accept the whole completion of you.
I just want the good parts.
I just want the good parts, not the bad parts. But that's the challenge of relationship, is that when something isn't good for one person, then when the going gets tough, then we look for exit strategies. When if you have some emotional baggage or insecurity, or I have insecurity from my past, if that's the condition that just makes people run away, then we're never going to have a deep, committed, emotionally intimate relationship with anyone.
And that's why, again, I think relationships become hard, because we're not given the skills on how to really hold the space for the other person when they're presenting, what sometimes people want to call their shadow side. But it's just the side of them that has the hurt and the pain. And if we don't hold it well, then the pain gets bigger, very much like if you're injured and I'm, here, and you would yell, you'd go, ow, like, Ellen, stop. And then I'd be, okay, and if that would be like me saying, well, that's it, you go fix it yourself. But we know to go, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Yes, I need to handle that more tenderly, more mindfully, more skillfully. And again, what I like about what you're saying is what creates a good relationship is both parties actually are mindful and aware of what they're bringing and what the situation is. And again, I think we're not taught to work collaboratively together. I think we're taught to be more competitive in our relationships. We live in a world where we love our extremes and our dualities. We love to be the winner, not the loser. We like to be right, not wrong. We want to be first, not second or further down. And so we want to be good, not bad. And the way that sets us up in relationship is if I'm living in a duality or a world where I think like that's our black and white thinking, then naturally, without even realizing, if you're upset, that would make me wrong, and I can't be wrong. I have to be right. So now I'm going to go into my justifications. I'm going to stop seeing you. I'm going to stop addressing your pain. That's going to get you triggered and go, well, wait a minute, I'm not going to be wrong. And then we end up in that classic power struggle fight dynamic.
Yeah,
and we don't know how to get out of that loop. And that does so many relationships in, because it's exhausting. Yeah, and if you have to be the winner, and there can only be one winner, then there's always a loser. And as long as there's one loser in any relationship dynamic, not even romantic, any relationship dynamic, the relationship loses.
Yeah, that's a good point, because you're the power dynamic, or how does any relationship, but specifically in romantic, because it's so highlighted, is that how do we negotiate power? Who has power? How is power shared? Who makes the decisions? Do we both feel like we get to influence? And are we granting power? How do we share it, so that do I give you the power to influence me in decisions? So in any relationship, if you think about a canoe, and that you and I are in the canoe, and we're not just paddling, but when we get to land and then we're portaging the canoe, like physically, we can't carry 50-50.
I'm making you carry more of the canoe.
Well, for sure. So that's just physically, we wouldn't carry 50-50.
Yeah.
Right? So, but emotionally, it may not be 50-50. You may emotionally be the stronger one when we're portaging. You may be the one that says, okay, we're not carrying this canoe up this hill. We're taking the longer but more flat way around to the next lake. And I should be influenced by you doing that, instead of saying, well, I can negotiate this hill. Let's go. that sets up the competition between you and I versus we want to keep canoeing. We want the ship to go somewhere. So how do we negotiate this boat together, this relationship, so that we can go far? The portage or the canoeing, the paddling can happen over many days, weeks, years, so that we both enjoy it.
Yeah, that's the thing, that we're building joy in the process, that we leave feeling better for the experience, not worse. And that's the key. We have to always leave feeling better. So, okay, one other thing I want to bring up. I'm kind of switching gears here.
Yeah.
But same topic on what makes relationships difficult. One other factor I think is very prevalent today more than ever is the busy hustle lifestyle that we have. Relationships, like anything worthwhile, require time, attention. Even there's a healthy pace that relationships need to move at. We're so busy, like we pack our schedules. We live in this culture where it's do more, say more, have more, and whether it's more stuff, more work, more vacations, more kids, more pets, more time out, more parties, and the relationship now is in competition with our schedule.
I think that applies for the individual mindset as well as the relationship. And so I think this again is the power struggle in relationships, because one person may want to go more than the other, and so they're dictating the agenda and the rushing, like we did in the beginning, where I was go all the time, and
has that changed?
11 things on the to-do list, and because of that, it just meant that you were more rushed and stressed, and I was more frustrated because of the delays. And that's the power struggle between you and I, but that struggle actually starts because that's what I bring into the relationship, is this unhealthy relationship with self, thinking that the more I do, the more I perform, the more productive I am, the more worthy I am as a human,
and the more value
the more value I bring. And so don't you want to keep me around because I can do a lot of stuff, I can handle a lot, I can juggle a lot, I can spin lots of plates, so I'm a much more valued human. But it ends up stressed you out, and I think that brings a lot of stress in relationships because people believe that more is better.
Yeah.
When couples try to do too much, I think they stress themselves out. We've learned to tune out of what our own real needs are and tuning into the postured life. And so,
I don't even know when we need to go to the bathroom sometimes. Like, how many times have you heard someone say, or even experienced yourself, like, oh my God, I've had to go to the bathroom for like 2 hours, and
so busy.
Yeah.
And so, couples will be on vacations trying to get the perfect photograph of their, instead of enjoying it. And so they might have got the perfect shot, but they argued all the while to get that perfect shot. And, is it worth it? And so when you put it on social media, it looks as if it was worthwhile, all that effort, but the connection is gone. And I think when in any relationship, whether it's a business one or even a romantic one, is to give the connection that people are wanting. So I know for you and I, what we value is sitting outside and or even sitting on the couch, snuggling on the couch, even bedtime when we're together, and just having that pillow talk to process. Even at night when we're getting ready for bed, to be in the bathroom and we're both brushing our teeth and just being. I think that beingness of just having lots of time together without the rush, knowing that we have a whole hour to process.
I think though, because we learned by not creating that time, the impact that had, that we didn't have the time to integrate our experiences. As an individual, we usually don't give ourselves time to actually integrate, right? Life is happening to us all the time. We're having emotional reactions, we're having physiological reactions, and we give ourselves little to no time to integrate that individually. So then I bring that energy into our relationship. And then there's the impacts that are happening between us, and there's no time for integration of that either. And then it really is a ticking time bomb. Then we set ourselves up to have it come out in these wonky ways. So I think we learned, thankfully, in our journey together, that we needed to build in these points in the day, these checkpoints almost, where we can have some integration time.
Yeah.
And so, starting our day, we make sure we do that. After work, we make sure we have time, because we know we're full from the work day, and there's usually lots to integrate. And then bedtime, we usually make sure we have, even if it's just a few minutes, to give each other the space to talk anything out we want to before we go to bed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like any machine, whether it's a car running or a computer, if you ask too much of it for too long, it overheats and it sort of fries the circuits. And so, if you're driving in the car on a long journey, you need to stop. Not only do you need a break, the machine needs a break. It needs to cool down. It needs to recharge. It needs to refuel. And so the processing time, just to be like, before we keep going, let's just get off the highway for a bit. Same with computers. You need to demand less of it. It can only process so much at a time before it gets overheat, and then you got to shut that program or let it cool down. But the same thing with us. If you have 8 to 10 hours of a work day, processing, doing, you need like breaks in between to process the morning. That's why you have a lunch break, to just break and pause, to sort of decompress from the morning. And then you have the afternoon productivity, but then you have to have some downtime to process and to connect and ground yourself at the end of the workday as you move into your evening.
I think sometimes we have this resistance to our own humanness, that we want to believe that we're like these machines, and that we can schedule life out, and we can ignore our actual human state.
Yeah, so people will say, and I used to say this all the time, that a change is as good as a rest. Well, why not a rest is as good as a rest? Because we can move from this to something else and something else, and yes, I have new dopamine and new energy to do something else, but it isn't the same. Change is not the same as rest. Change is just change. It's just another dopamine hit, another ride to go on, and I think that's the detriment of relationship, and definitely a detriment to our connection. If we keep go, then eventually we're just bringing, fumes, drained batteries to our relationship. And that's why a lot of arguments happen at the dinner hour. For kids, that's the witching hour.
Yeah.
Everyone's tired, running on empty, and
hungry,
and wanting like physical needs like food, but also emotional needs. And so you have the high needs, but low drain batteries. So couples usually argue during dinner. Kids have their meltdowns. And I think that's just because we've just run ourselves ragged too much, and we don't have enough engagement processing time. What we're really wanting at the heart of it is connection.
Yeah.
And we're not taught how to do that.
We're not taught not only how to do it, but we're not taught to value it. Even when we're doing together and we're in action, we're connecting over something out there, and we're not connecting here. We're sort of skimming life on the surface of activities, but we're never getting to dive deep, and that's where the real heart-to-heart connection. It's more head-to-head. Hey, you see that? Do you see? Yeah, we like that. We don't like that. We have a conversation about that, and we mistake that for connection, but we don't actually get to go beneath the surface of that, which is, how did that thing make me feel? What did it bring up for me? Even what questions do I have? What more do I want? How does that impact me as a human? Who am I becoming as a result of impacting? Who are we becoming? And sharing that level of connection, because it helps me know me better, and it helps you know me better, and it helps me know you better, and that is amazing.
Yeah.
I think we've covered a lot of ground on why it's difficult to have healthy relationships, and hopefully, though, inspired more curiosity and understanding on the directions we need to go in so that we can have a better time being with people. I think that's what we want, a better time being with people where it feels safer, more loving, more inspiring, and more connected.
Yeah.
So
if you like this video, consider subscribing to our channel, and you can also check out this next video.
Thanks for watching.